Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a bit of an investigation, deep inside our own bodies. We're on the hunt for a hidden culprit, a single enzyme that might just be a key driver behind some of our most challenging diseases. So let's kick things off with a pretty huge question, one that scientists are getting closer to answering every single day. What if a key to fighting something like cancer wasn't some brand new discovery, but something that's been hiding in plain sight, right inside our cells this whole time? You know, inside the microscopic universe of each of our cells, there's this incredibly delicate balancing act going on constantly. But what happens when just one of those key players goes rogue? Well, that balance gets thrown way off, and that can lead to some massive problems. We're talking metabolic disorders and even cancer. All right, so let's meet the main character in our story. It's an enzyme called glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. Yeah, it's a mouthful, so we're just going to call it G6PD. And you can kind of think of it as the cell's housekeeper. So what does this housekeeper do? Well, G6PD is basically the master regulator, kind of like a traffic cop, for a really critical metabolic route called the pentose phosphate pathway. And this pathway, it's a central hub for all sorts of essential jobs inside the cell. Now, under normal circumstances, G6PD is absolutely one of the good guys. I mean, look at its day job. It helps build new parts for the cell. It defends the cell from damage, and it produces this super important molecule called NADPH, which is like a universal power source for all kinds of reactions. Bottom line, it's essential for keeping our cells healthy and growing properly. But, you know, like in any good story, there's a twist. For G6PD to be the hero, its activity level has to be, well, it has to be just right. Not too little, and, as we're about to see, definitely not too much. And this really shows you that dual nature, right? It's like walking a nice edge. On one side, if you have too little G6PD, that's a deficiency, it causes serious problems. But for our investigation today, we're focused on the other side of that edge. What happens when there's way, way too much of a good thing? Because when G6PD goes into overdrive, that hyperactivity has been directly linked to one of the diseases we fear most, cancer. And the research here is pretty darn clear. Hyperactive G6PD, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. It provides the fuel and the raw building blocks that cancer cells desperately need to grow and multiply completely out of control. Okay, now this is where it gets absolutely wild. It turns out some viruses, like HPV, which is linked to cervical cancer, or hepatitis B, linked to liver cancer, they act like master criminals. They break into a healthy cell, hijack its internal machinery, and basically force it to start overproducing G6PD. They're creating the perfect, fuel-rich environment for cancer to begin. And if you thought that was bad, the problem gets even worse. This supercharged enzyme doesn't just help tumors grow. Remember that oxidative defense job it has? Well, it uses that same skill to build a shield around cancer cells, protecting them from treatments like chemo and radiotherapy. It's a double whammy. But here's the thing. It's not just viruses we have to worry about. It turns out there are unseen accomplices in our modern everyday lives that can also mess with this crucial enzyme. You see, the activity of G6PD is very tightly controlled by our body's endocrine system. That's a system that uses hormones to manage, well, pretty much everything from growth to metabolism. So anything that disrupts our hormones can have a serious knock-on effect on G6PD. And this is where it hits home. We're talking about common chemicals called endocrine disruptors, or EDCs, and they're found in so many everyday products. By messing with our hormones, these chemicals can damage our body's ability to keep G6PD in check, potentially leading to the exact same metabolic problems that can fuel disease. All right, but after all that, here comes the good news. Because by identifying G6PD as a key culprit, scientists have also found a really promising new target for treatment. The goal here is actually pretty simple and brilliant. If G6PD is the fuel for cancer cells, what if we could develop drugs that just turned on the pump, cut off the fuel supply, specifically in those cancer cells, and stop them right in their tracks? It's a huge focus in cancer research right now. And in the search for things that can shut this enzyme down, research has turned up a really surprising candidate, a compound you're probably very familiar with. Caffeine. That's right, in lab studies, caffeine has been shown to inhibit the G6PD enzyme. It's a wild thought, right? A potential solution might just be hiding in plain sight. And that just opens up so many exciting new doors, doesn't it? It shows us that by really understanding these fundamental, tiny pathways inside our bodies, we can find incredible new ways to fight back. Which leaves us with a final question to chew on. As we learn to control cellular culprits like this one, what other diseases, from cancer to maybe even neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's, what could we possibly tackle next?